to order at 6:31. Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Okay. Member Galvan?
Here.
Member Schill?
Present.
Member Raffinelli?
Present.
Chair Taylor?
Present.
Member Bicknell? Member Pache? And Member Earl.
Chair Taylor, we have Member Bicknell, Earl, and Pache have asked for excusals for other engagements, I should say.
Perfect. So I'm asking for a motion to excuse Jessica, Alex, or Member Pachi, Member Earl, and Member Becknell.
I move to excuse the 3 members listed.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 And opposed? And motion carries. Are there any late changes to the agenda?
No late changes to the agenda, Chair.
Excellent. It is now time for our first public comment. Anyone requesting to speak to the board regarding all items not subject to a specific public hearing may come forward at this time. Please state your name and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Written comments may be submitted to the clerk prior to the meeting.
Is this the time to talk about, to advocate for park names?
There will be another opportunity for that, during the public hearing part. All right. If there are no comments, then we'll move ahead to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the May 6th Parks Board meeting minutes?
I move to approve the minutes from May 6, 2025, as presented.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 I abstain from, I was not at the meeting.
Okay, and opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, the next item on our agenda is the public hearing regarding the naming of the new community park located in the Paradise Point PUD. The public hearing is being held to receive public comment on the proposed names submitted for consideration. The public hearing will be conducted as follows. Staff will give their report and answer any questions from the board. Following the staff report, I will open the hearing for public testimony. After the opportunity for public testimony, the board may have an additional questions for staff. I will then close the hearing and the board will discuss and consider the matter. And Mr. Crownhart.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Chair and Parks Board, and also welcome to what I believe is our first public hearing at Parks Board. So congratulations. We have new administrative work ahead of us. So with that, let's talk about the proposed naming of a new community park here in Ridgefield. So with that, the property in question is in the Paradise Point Planned Unit Development, or PUD, essentially a housing development that's being built within the city. So first we're going to go over the history of that project. We're going to talk about the naming process in particular, since this is the first time that we are going through this process. You'll have the opportunity to, of course, run your public hearing, and you'll have an opportunity to discuss and make some potential recommendations to council for consideration. Next slide. So the Paradise Point PUD, let's talk about their park. So as you are well aware, Parks Board, all of the planned unit developments in the city of Ridgefield are required to dedicate 25% of their property to parks, trails, and open spaces. The Paradise Point PUD has set aside 18.2 acres to be part of a community park that would be dedicated to the city. So this presented us a unique opportunity to provide a wonderful asset on the central, north of Pioneer section of the city that was desperately in need of an asset like this to help support it. So when looking at the development timeline, this goes all the way back to 2016 when the first development and pre-annexation agreement was put together with HSR, the company who's actually constructing the houses out there. In 2023, there was an amendment to the developer agreement, which helped solidify that the park was going to be dedicated to the city and part of the overall process. In December of 2024, you'll recall that we adopted the Paradise Point Master Plan, which has since been used by the developer, and with a second amendment to the developer agreement, has come down to $2,018,001 being dedicated to help build out this park. So this is a great service to the community, a great asset, and we're really excited to have it be a part of our system. From here, there's been initial designs that our team is currently reviewing and ensuring that the developers are adhering to our engineering standards and ensuring that it is reflective of that master plan that you've put together. In June or July, you're going to start seeing some more construction with grading and actual work being done on the space, and there is the intention of having the park complete and ready for a beautiful ribbon cutting sometime in August or September of this year. And I'm thrilled to have you all there to be part of that opening.
Exciting.
To review, here is the master plan for Paradise Point that I know many of you are familiar with, but for the public, I'll go over some of the basics within here. This 18-acre park encompasses wetland areas as well as a large pond that used to be an agricultural dam. So because of that and all of the vegetation that's in this space, it's frequented by birds that often visit our nearby refuge and is really lives up to that name of Paradise Point. It's really a pristine and beautiful area with lots of different type of vegetation, native plants, and animals within our community definitely thrive in these areas. When looking at the quadrants that are going to see the most development, if you actually go back to the previous page, this is a zoomed in for the northeast corner of the park. The primary assets that will be placed within the park for phase 1 will be the playground as well as the surfacing for a tot lot as well as a 5 to 12-year-old playground. There'll be a nature trail that snakes around this to allow spaces for children to have some more natural play. And then there'll be a picnic shelter that's put in place as well. All of the trails and pedestrian access routes that you see on this page will be in place as well. And then finally, go to the next page, please. You'll also see the addition of a parking lot and all of the access for that northeast corner. All of the trails that you see are actually already in place in the park, all the asphalt trails. So really it's focusing in on that northeast corner. The hope is to have phase 1 complete later this summer, and future phases will help address the amenities within the other 3 quadrants. All right, let's talk about our naming process. So last year, you all updated the Ridgefield Municipal Code 8.18.100, which is the naming of parks, trails, and facilities. The objective that I heard from Council and from Parks Board was to engage the public in our naming process so that it reflects the community's values and desires of where it wants to go. So that's what today will be about. That naming process states that first, when a new property is acquired by the city or will be coming into our system, we need to have a working title for that park or trail before we actually get to a naming process, because our team is doing design work, design review work, and so we need to be able to refer to it as something. So a name is chosen with the city manager's direction of what that particular name would be, so we have that working title. Throughout the process of planning and permitting and getting ready for construction, staff will then initiate the public engagement process to ensure that we get the public's input. For this particular process today, we have a public survey that was done over the past couple of weeks, and now we are conducting a public hearing. As you conduct the public hearing, things to keep in mind, you are not limited to just the names that have been submitted through either the survey or may be submitted tonight through public testimony. you have the opportunity to choose any names that you may see fitting for this park. You also do not have to make a recommendation tonight. That said, what I am tossing your way is an opportunity to potentially pick out 3 names for council to consider and 3 justifications for why you want those 3 names. At the end of the day, the official naming authority for any of our assets within the city of Ridgefield falls to city council. As an advisory board, you can help shape that decision, but at the end of the day, they can either go with your recommendation or they can go with something that they deem to be more suiting for the community. So this is our opportunity to welcome the public. Please share your thoughts, talk about why this park is important to you and what you think it should be named. Some considerations in the naming process that are stated in code these are just considerations for Parks Board and Council to think about, are to consider neighborhood and boundary roads, natural or geographical features, cultural or historical significance. If it's naming of any deceased individuals with outstanding public service, we ask that they at least it has been at least a year since their passing. And finally, contributing organizations. Some of the restrictions that are stated within code are to generally not name facilities after living individuals unless part of a donation agreement of some type. And 3, names must not be offensive or inappropriate by community standards. So that is the naming process. Before we dig into the survey results, considering this is our first time doing this, do you have any questions about the naming process?
Do you guys have questions?
Wonderful.
Oh, I feel good.
Perfect. All right. So what has been submitted to you and is available to the public is a survey result of all of the names that were submitted through our Ridgefield Roundtable survey website. The survey was conducted from March 18th to May 28th, 2025, and that report is attached. Overall, we had 51 names submitted and over 50 plus comments and likes on the Ridgefield Roundtable site. That has been provided to you for review, questions, comments, and thoughts. With that, do you have any questions before you open your public hearing?
I don't, do you guys? No, I'm excited. I think this is exciting, and I feel grateful to have these citizens here with us. So are we ready? All right.
This is your meeting, Chair.
All right, so if there are any citizens here or online requesting to speak on this subject at this public hearing, you may come forward at this time. Our public hearing is now open. Please make sure to state your name and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Don't everybody go at once.
Usually you gotta hit the button on the top there
Yeah, turn the little mic on.
till it's blue.
There's a little blue light that comes on.
There we go.
All right.
Would have worn a nicer shirt. I'm sorry. My name is Peter Hirschman. My wife and I are actually moving to Paradise Point, so we're right in the middle of it, and just came from the site. So we're excited to move to Ridgefield, and excited that you guys have this process. I mean, the main reason we're here is just to make sure it's not Parky McParkface.
There goes my option.
Yeah.
Man,
We did as a family. We did submit a name, but I'm actually curious to see if it ends up in the top 3. I don't want to
okay.
overly advocate for it, but yeah, I'm just grateful you guys have this process. It's where we're going to be living, so it's nice to have a little bit of a voice in it. So yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else?
Hi, my name's Kelly, but apparently you guys already know that. Unfortunately, I was here to advocate for naming the park Green Park after our soon-to-be retired Public Works Director, Chuck Green, but I didn't know about the restriction on not naming parks for living people. So I guess I'll just say, out of the ones here, I like the names that are a little more unique and memorable. For example, naming it Royal Park there's a lot of things around here named Royal. And so I think that could be like a little forgettable. There's also a lot of things around here named Pioneer. I think my favorite would be Wildflower Meadows or Wildflower Park. Meadowbrook Park, or what was it, Heron Hollow. The alliteration is nice.
Oh, am I giving away something?
All right, that's all. Thanks for your consideration.
Thank you.
Thanks. Is there anyone online that's interested in sharing? Okay. Okay. Do I have anyone else that would like to speak during the public hearing? I don't hear anyone, so we are going to now close the public hearing and open it up for discussion amongst the board.
So, I know when this first came, I was one of the loudest, I think, outspoken, like, it will not be called Paradise Point, since Paradise Point State Park is right across the freeway, and it's been there for decades. I had a name that I had liked, and it was just initially off the top of my head, it was Paradise Found. But I thought it was nice that it related to the neighborhood, and it was just different than Paradise Point. But I like that there were 51 submissions. So I did not put in a submission because I thought there's certainly out of this pool of people, and I'm extremely pleased that we really had so many submissions. And I always like to see a reason why somebody says it, because that's like the selling point. And by the way, welcome to Ridgefield. I'm always happy to have residents move into our area. When I went through the list of names, I considered what the park was and looked like. Now, we have a nature play park in Abrams Park. This park is very much a nature play park. Part of the aspect, you have the pond, there's so much. This probably has more features, a variety of features. The play areas, the walking areas, it's a very large footprint. And so I kept that in mind. I'm very happy that somebody submitted Alene Woodidge's name. So for new members to Ridgefield, Alene Woodidge moved here early in her, I think in her marriage, we'll say 45, 50 years ago. She has her fingerprint or her footprint on just about anything that was initially created that started this whole ball rolling in Ridgefield as a volunteer. She was never paid for anything, but she fundraised and worked for years to get the Overlook Park built. That was Alene Woodidge. Alene Woodidge, if you've ever heard of Camp Cispus, which is here in Clark County. Kids, when I was 10 years old, my brother went, he's 65. This is a camp that her and her husband started in Clark County. It's where kids, I think they call it outdoor camp now. So kids go, stay for several nights, learn the outdoors. Alene and her husband created that. And it still lives on to this day. And that serves all of the school kids of a certain age in Clark County. She served on our library to get our library not only built, helped to get it built, the one that's existing now, but she was part of the group that went from the old little house, tea house, that then moved to the community center. The community center, which is no longer there because it's now, the library is now housed in the community center. She had that community center built, and it was owned by the citizens of Ridgefield, not by the city, not by any organization. And she is a historical figure in town that anybody that was here 10 years back, because she has since died, and before she died, she just said one day, I'm aged out, and she just dropped out of everything. But she created all of this community service in this town that got other people to volunteer. And when we were 2,500 people, or even we got up to 6,000 people, Aleen's motto, or she had a little business card. It wasn't even a business card. It was just a card with her name and a picture, and it said, get in and help, or step in and help, or volunteer, or get out of the way. And that she's the person that went around and captured, hi, my name's Aleen, welcome to Ridgefield. What can you do for Ridgefield? We have this thing, we'd like you to volunteer. And she would get everybody involved. And this is what has built, this is why people move to Ridgefield now. We have 17,000 people. Aleen started that ball rolling. Now, there's something to be said about, the Aleen Woodage Park. That doesn't have a lot of creative, I know I'm talking for a long time. I don't think I have a 3-minute limit, do I?
You're doing great.
But, I mean,
I think it's really important.
some people don't know Aleen Woodage, and since she has died, she died quiet. She stepped back, just removed herself completely while she was kind of ailing, and then she died, and she died very quietly. There's been hardly any mention of her, and I have been talking to some people saying, we really need to pay homage to Aleen. We need to celebrate her in some way. Her name is on a few little plaques or memory bricks. Her name's on a brick. If there's a brick with a name on it, she's in that pile of bricks. But I like this storybook park. And the person who submitted storybook park says something that relates to the kids and wildlife. And it does. Park says, come play, come sit, come watch, come rest, relax. Park is an all-inclusive, come do whatever makes you feel comfortable at this park. And so the park itself will tell you what you can do here. You can jump through a tunnel, run through a ladder, go through the bushes, walk the trail, sit on a bench. So the park means come to us. Storybook kind of relates to, we want all kids to come. And storybook kind of relates to older people. Well, Aleen was all about kids volunteering, kids learning, kids participating, enriching kids' lives. And this fits really well. And I think if we thought about combining that Aleen Woodage Storybook Park, it's not just storybook, but it's not just Aleen Woodage. It really kind of helps tie in. I mean, I'd call it the Aleen Woodage Volunteer Memorial Park, but I like this storybook park. So that is my very long explanation. Sometimes when you just say, I want it to be named this, you don't have an understanding why. And I'm so happy to see that somebody, I don't know who submitted this, I'm happy to see somebody submitted it, because it means there's other people out there saying, we cannot ever forget Aleen Woodage, like we can't forget the Cardys, who have a whole streets named after them, and parks, and the Seviers and the Schoberts, and the people who built this town 100 years ago and did all the volunteer work when the population was only 2,000 people. And Aleen is one of those people who are more recent in our history that I think we need to recognize. And what a great way to do this for Aleen. So that's the end of my pitch.
I think that was a lovely pitch. And if you want to see a picture of her, there is a picture of her hanging down in the Liberty Theater Seasons Coffee Shop. They have a photo of her. What about you guys? I know that board member Pachi had sent in some ideas. She is unable to be here because she's having a baby, but she had some ideas of Cardy's Landing, Sahaley Point Park, Lewitt View, and Eagle View Park were her top ideas.
Sorry, I'm off here. I put a star next to Lewitt View, but then I was trying to think in my head if in that area if you can actually see the mountain from there. I guess I'm always looking ahead of me because I'm running through, like looking at my feet. So I like that one. I know there's a Lewitt Brewery and there's some other things around here, the Lewitt Trail, things like that. But I do like that we're getting at the native root, but also the scenery and what's involved there. And so that was kind of probably my number one. And I got to think of my number 2 and 3.
I also liked Louisville because, yeah, I think it's really important that we are giving a props to the indigenous people who were before us. And I don't think there's a lot of things that give props to indigenous people. So that was also my number one. I also liked Wildflower Meadows. I don't know, this like sounds pretty. It just sounds nice. I like it.
Yeah, I fall in line with Sandy when you're talking about Mrs. Woodidge's park, Eileen's Woodidge's park, with the storybook idea that I hadn't thought about. And when you look at the ties she had with the library and with children, and the camp and all the different pieces she was involved, there's no little nook or cranny that she wasn't a part of in this community, and really has her name stamped on. So I love that idea, and I hadn't ever thought about combining it with another name, but that makes so much sense. And it is surprising to me that there isn't something already. And I worked with her daughter at the school, elementary school, and I remember them talking about as she passed what they were going to do. And I am surprised. I think it is a lovely way to honor a woman that gave so much of her heart to our community. So I am with Sandy on that. There are so many wonderful names that were submitted. I'm impressed at how the community turned out.
I'm in agreement. I didn't know the backstory, so I think after being educated and seeing the impact, and then I could definitely put that on my list of the top 3 to recommend to council. I do like the idea of incorporating that again, it is a nature park. I know we have the Onslow Nature Park as well. And, you know, again, I'd be open to combining something in the word nature into something else. You know, if it was Lewitt View Nature Park or something, you know, putting a couple of those together, just because I think adding that it is primarily a nature park could give a better name recognition to it. And again, if people are looking for a nature park, I don't know if that's a Google term people are putting in, but it just could add more to it. So you could count me in that camp of people who would be for making a motion towards something with Eileen Woodidge. And I like the storybook idea too. I hadn't thought of that.
So when I went through, I try not to give a negative comment, but there's a couple on here that I did look, and we have an Eagles View Park. It's the end of South Main that is technically called Eagles View Park. When Eileen Woodidge really created that Overlook Park, the official name of it is Refuge Overlook Park, but it became so confusing because we have a refuge park and then the wildlife refuge and refuge. We cut that name. I know Eileen did not like that, but it bothered her when everybody called it Overlook Park, but it was easier to say than that. Refuge Overlook Park. It was a mouthful, so we call that Overlook. But there's a couple on here that we kind of do. I like the idea that the neighborhood, if we incorporate the word paradise, it makes it feel like it's only for that neighborhood. This is a park that is grand enough, and it might be unfortunate to the residents, like how come people are coming from outside our neighborhood to use this? It's not like a pocket park, you know, it just has a couple play sets. This is gonna be a very unique park. You're gonna have people who are gonna come from neighboring neighborhoods that are gonna make the trip, kind of like the DeMello Park. People go specifically there for that because of the musical instruments that are in there. But there's a few names I just look and I think Paradise, Pioneer, you know, like you said, like let's drop off some of the things that we already have. The Royal, it becomes confusing, and it does take some away from other names. I like that the indigenous, I feel like there's a park out there that needs to have that name on it. I would be curious about that particular footprint of that park being in the indigenous name, because it's not, I would like to see something that is within, that gives it a reason why we're putting the indigenous instead of just, there's a patch over there, the next patch, let's name it after, because we do know the indigenous people with the Chinookans and the Cowlitz and some other, other names like Lewitt and the Sahali that have actual footprints in areas that were closer. Maybe they were closer to like waterways, they usually were. And so something that would be able to really explain why we named that particular latitude and longitude in an indigenous name than just the next park that comes along. And so, and I really am pretty strong towards like this, what a great opportunity to give Aline. And I like that story, but I kind of like if we can throw another name in there, I think I think park really is a much better, the last word, park, is because it's not just a view. If it ended in view, it would be like, it's a viewing area. Oh, there's nothing there but a viewing. Like Eagles View, there's no swing sets, there's no playground, it's a viewing park. And so I think park is a good last word. I mean, to really cut this down, I think this is something we should spend more time on, more conversation, like, let's talk some more, and you come up with another one, and then the rest of us go like, oh yeah, I didn't think of that. Because you have to have lots of conversation, a lot of other things that will make any one of you think differently and think, well, what if we did this? And we take Aline Woodage peaceful storybook, and start piecemealing. I mean, you don't want to be a full sentence or a paragraph, but, right? Because people are going to shorten the name.
We could make an acronym,
Yeah, right. Aline's
Yeah.
Storybook Park. We could say, I mean, because there's going to be something that we could say. Well, we might only call it Aline, because how do you pronounce Woodage? Someone's going to look at that. Woodage? How do you say Woodage? It's spelled funny. You don't know how to pronounce it. Maybe we say Aline's Storybook Park. And then there's a plaque that says who Aline Woodage is. Kind of like the Hayden Park. I think there's a little plaque or story that says this was named after Hank Hayden, who was our park's, what'd you call him, curator? Who took care of our park, Hank Hayden. And he did the school bus cars and the kids. There's that little explanation to 10 years from now, the next generation goes, who's she? Or who's he? Who's Hank Hayden? Why is it named that? We should rename this. Well, there's the little plaque that tells you why you're not going to rename that park. You're not going to take Hank Hayden's name off that park because he was significant 15 years ago. So I think we should really think about it more, talk more. All of us talk a lot about it so that when it does go to council, we have vetted all of the reasons why, and the council should hear the reasons why we chopped that up or took a piece from that and a piece from that, so that they don't have to do that. They're kind of expecting us to really hash this and cut it up and explain why we should or why we shouldn't. That's why I would say park is better than meadow, or park is better than view. And if we don't verbalize that and say that, we're not telling the council we talked about that.
So am I hearing you that you would like to wait so we have a full board
No.
here? Oh, okay.
I don't necessarily,
I
I wish we had a
saying-
full board,
Yeah.
because 7 minds
Yeah.
come up with better.
That's what I just wanted to clarify.
We can, that is something we can do, but the council might think, that does not go in line with our construction and opening.
Yeah.
Well, and it's the opening that I look at.
So we are kind of on a
August, September,
timeline here,
yeah.
right, Corey?
Not necessarily. I mean, at the end of the day, it's entirely up to you. Having a recommendation tonight to go to council just provides a little more time for planning of purchasing of signs and working with, making sure that the processes of getting ordering done. But I'll also add that now that we have a park naming process that more involves Parks Board, keep in mind that you'll have opportunities to name lots of things in the city. And quite frankly, we're probably going to have a lot of things starting to come through you. So this might become more of a familiar process. So don't think that this park has to encapsulate everything within the community. There'll be other opportunities for you to utilize many of the values and the stories and the components you're talking about in a variety of amenities across the city.
Well, and council could go on without our recommendation, correct? Like if we don't,
Oh, they very well could,
right.
yes.
So I mean, ultimately, it'd be nice if we give our 3 recommendations.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, if you give 2, if you give 1, if you give 7, that's entirely okay. This isn't your process fully. The 3 is just a, hey, here's what may be helpful to help guide them where to go, as opposed to just giving them 1 and saying, well, this is the only thing we have. You give them a couple of options, it gives them something to talk about and discuss. And just for your notes, all of the names that have been submitted will be included in, when we present this to them, including our conversation today. So they'll have all of that to consider when they're going through their process.
Yeah, and I'm curious to hear their own viewpoints and their own views. I'm also curious, I walked through where the current park is, but I'm trying to remember if you can, because the Lewitt View is the indigenous name for Mount St. Helens, if you can see Mount St. Helens from that park, because I feel like
Oh
you
boy, can you? Yeah, you can
So
definitely
I can
see
see
it.
the connection and to that name. And if I also was wondering if the tribe had been reached out to by the city about their thoughts on naming it.
There's not been direct communication
Okay.
with the tribes on naming of the park.
Is there? So you also, what else? What was the other name that you liked? The wildflower one.
Yeah, but I'm leaning more towards the Alene one now that I've heard more about it. I'm leaning towards that one, and then I still do like the Lewitt, but maybe we can change View to Park, like you were saying.
Yeah, I like both of those a lot.
I do too.
And I like the wildflower one. I was wondering also if, I know all the native plants that are being planted there, but is there also the opportunity of native wildflowers that are gonna be planted in that area as well?
Oh, there's definitely opportunities for that.
'Cause there's
If not
all
in
that
the
space.
original plan, I know that once not necessarily in phase 1, I'm not sure what the plantings are yet. That said, we're already in discussions of talking about how do we get the community to help us, plant out the rest of these spaces. We've got 3 other quadrants of the park that there are opportunities for plantings, and so
Right.
we're kind of exploring the idea of how do we get the community to be part of that.
Well, and wildflowers are so easy to plant. It'd be really fun for kids to be able to be a part of that. Okay.
I saw the reason that whoever submitted this said, it relates to the kids and wildlife. And it seems to be the same person that says no repetition that submitted another name that says no repetition by. So I think that family may have had more than one, which I think is okay. If I'm approaching this park, I'm bringing my child, and the name flowers in it, I better see some wildflowers. Because I'm gonna pull up and
That's
go.
what I was thinking.
I see a lot of azaleas and rhododendrons, and I see some trees where, I know what was there before that ground was ever scratched. It was cows. And I bet the wildflowers grew for a minute before the cows ate them, or there might have been around the perimeter. But if they would have said, this was a flower patch, everyone in Ridgefield knew this was the wildflower patch, I'd go, oh yeah, that makes sense. At one time, the wildflower, or Blackberry Hill, Park, where it was at one time 40 acres of blackberries. But I don't remember it being a wildflower. So if wildflower is incorporated, then I think it would be important, like you say, to say, well, if we're gonna name it that, we better have a patch, 3 triangles or 3 corners of wildflowers. So at least people don't think Ridgefield doesn't know what they're doing by, when you call something Heron Ridge, it's because you can see all the herons when you're on that ridge. That's not just like, well, we need to name something Heron. Let's name that one Heron. There has to always be, I work in healthcare, and everything we do, you have to have a reason for it. If you don't have a reason for it, you're not doing there's no reason to do it, or you're not doing it for the right reason. So to me, I want to hear why, and Lewitt makes sense. You can see Mount St. Helens, so that's why I say you have to have that plaque to explain who's Aline, what does Lewitt mean, because everyone's gonna think beer. And so, oh, that's what Lewitt means. St. Helens, yes, I can see it from here. That makes total sense to me. I like, even if we don't say to the council, we want it named this exact verbiage, I think if we said it's important that we include somehow Aline, it makes sense for Lewitt. When we give the council these reasons why we like Wildflower, Lewitt, Aline, this is, I'm kind of summarizing what I hear, good reasons why we would name them, then that's gonna make it less work for the council to make a decision and know, and they can trust that we actually really vetted this and talked about it for a long time, because I bet the council doesn't wanna talk about this for 45 minutes.
Right.
They have long meetings with a lot of subjects, so I think it's important that we keep talking about things and reasons.
And if I might add, Member Schill, the naming process will help, there are opportunities to help incorporate that name into some of the elements within the park, such as interpretive signage, kiosk, or other types of elements that may come from the name itself. So we're still early enough in the process that there's opportunities for that. And with additional phases of this park down the line, I'm sure that that will be incorporated in some way as well.
All right, so far, we have some good reasons for Lewitt, Aline Woodage, and Wildflower Meadows. Is there other ones that you guys, I like your way of doing things. Process going, yeah? And incorporating with Aline's a way to bring in the storybook park.
And I like the storybook word, give them,
I just feel with her, there's so much that could be incorporated with just the nature play piece is such a big,
she would be the
Peace.
first one to be planting native plants,
yep,
educating you on the indigenous footprint in Ridgefield and everything. She would be involved in wildflowers, storybooks, Lewitt. I mean, Camp Cispus, outdoor camp, focuses on that.
she pulls in all our major volunteer groups into one.
And the definitions of all of those, so that was what that's what she stood for.
Yeah.
I'm not sold on the Wetland Wonders one, but I do know that south of this park, and I think it connects to there, is a huge wetland, because there's that creek that goes through, and then it comes all the way down to Ryman, and then empties in. I do like the rationale behind the Wetland Wonders. Not that I'm sold on the name, but I do like the idea that this is primarily focusing on preserving the wetlands and the marshlands that are important to, that we have at the refuge. So just another food for thought.
Yeah.
I really, originally, just flipping through them, when I first looked at them, loved the Sahaley Point Park. My question on the Sahaley Point Park is there's so many different ways of pronouncing, or of writing Sahaley. And there are several things in other places and spaces that have that name, but not around here that I'm aware of. So I liked that one.
Am I on? We have, I know the waterfront park is kind of down our chain of, the one down at the port, and there's still talks of the city kind of taking partial commitment to that waterfront park area. That would be a perfect place for the Sahaley. I've never seen it with the G in there, I'm gonna say.
Me
I've never
neither.
seen the G in Sahaley. I've usually seen the hyphen and accent marks and things like that. So, but they are, with the Cafalpodal. I like the Cafalpodal, but we have the Cafalpodal house, and the Chinookans are the Chinook tribe is the ones who maintain and they're responsible for the Castle of Podal. I like the Sahali. I see that, that's what I was saying. I totally see that being the Sahali waterfront park. Or I even think, why didn't we call the one up by the Acero Apartments? I've already forgotten the name of it because it just doesn't make sense. You know,
Horns Corner.
Horns Corner.
Corner.
Wetlands.
Yeah.
Horns Corner wetlands. And so, because that is a true wetland, we all planted trees in it because it's a wetland. So I like getting that wetlands. We're a lot of ridges out here. We're a lot of fields and we're a lot of wetlands. That's why we're called Ridgefield. Ridges and fields. But the wetlands, I do like we have wetlands in this park. Maybe we can at some point name different areas like the wetlands of Allen's, but whatever we come up with, that there can be different sections of the park over in the wetlands covered area or the wetlands picnic area. I like the wetlands too. I think that name needs to be brought into some of our parks. And the Sahali and the Lewitt. I mean, Lewitt's more appropriate for this area because of Mount St. Helens. I did not know that's what Lewitt, that was the reference to Lewitt
Yeah. Right,
for Mount
well,
St. Helens.
do you guys feel like any others, like it's a throw up between any others than these three, or?
I really like the ones that we've touched on. What do you think?
Corey, do you know when our recommendation would be brought up to council? Like, would it be at tomorrow's meeting?
Oh,
They
no, it
start
would definitely
speaking
not be
about
at
it?
tomorrow's meeting.
Okay. 'cause
We have
I would-
to
yeah.
post things at least a week ahead of time for
Okay.
public review, so the soonest that it would get to them would be the second meeting in June, which I believe is 2 weeks from tomorrow. But it also depends on what else is on their docket and their schedule.
Okay.
Council is often very busy, and they need more parks things on there, in my opinion.
Right. All right, so this is gonna be kind of tricky for me to say, so it's,
Use the word incorporating
all right.
these.
Perfect. So I'm going to request a motion to recommend to the city council. These are our top three names we are looking at as incorporating, number one, Alene Woodage, and possibly including Storybook Park as a part of it, as she encompassed so many things with our libraries and children and outdoors. And then Lewitt View Park, because it has such a beautiful view of Mount St. Helens. And maybe that's thirdly incorporating Wildflower Meadows, hoping that it perhaps has wildflowers in it, since that's what's neat.
I'll second that motion.
Do we need to put it in a,
In
is
a-
it okay? Bridget can make a motion as the chair.
Well,
She
no, I
can-
can't,
no,
I can't,
you
but
cannot. So
I'm
you need one of us-
requesting,
you need one of us
if
to
you
make a
can
motion. So one of you all
reword,
have-
I guess, request a motion for the top three names as incorporating,
So I'll move to submit to council
yes,
the naming of the new park, include Alene or Alene Woodage, Lewitt for its St. Helens View, Storybook for the emphasis on Allene's impact, wetlands as part of the unique character of the park, and did I leave one out?
wildflower,
Wildflowers in the, that's a meadows. Wildflower park, and the word park in reference to the wildflowers that can be incorporated in the park.
I'll second that motion.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries.
Wonderful, we'll make sure that we report that to council.
Was that
Thank you.
recordable?
That was a lot.
We've got notes on it. We'll make sure we type this up and kind of encapsulate your motion, Member Schill, and the approval, and we'll make sure that that gets to the proper place.
Thanks.
All right, is there anyone requesting to speak to the board regarding all items not subject to specific public hearing? Oh wait, yes, may come forward at this time. Please state your name and limit comments to 3 minutes. Written comments may be submitted to the clerk prior to the meeting.
Can we comment on what we?
Yeah,
Comment.
yes.
Yep.
Well, I think I hope I'm pronouncing her name right. Eileen Woodage. I mean, it's great. I would definitely, as a future resident living in there, I would prefer a park over something else. And I think Storybook Park is really cute. So, yeah, I like the cut of that jib. That sounded nice. Wildflower. I think if there's no wildflowers there, it just it's a little bit of false advertising.
Yeah.
On the Lewitt, I think that's a great name. The main street running parallel to the park is Helen's View Drive, so it's maybe a little redundant. I mean, again, it's sort of reclaiming the name a bit, but you've got two competing view-related names for what that's worth. So, our family submitted Heron Hollow if you were keeping score. So, yeah. But yeah, I loved hearing about Eileen. Am I saying that?
Aline,
Eileen.
with an A.
All right. Yeah, if it's on the plaque, I'll learn how to spell it. So. Yeah, so I would advocate for that. I think that was really wonderful. So.
Thank you. Anybody else? Is there anyone online tonight?
I'll just follow up like you did. I think that I did not know about Aline Woodage. I've only lived here a few years, and she sounds like an amazing person that deserves recognition, absolutely, in our town. But I also think that the name Aline Woodage Storybook Park is a bit of a mouthful. And as a mom, I know that I talk to other moms. I'm like, let's go meet at Davis Park or something, and then the other person types it into Google Maps, and it would be a challenge for someone to type in Aline Woodage Storybook Park if they don't know how it's spelled. So I think that I like the name Storybook Park. I think that's very appealing. If you have kids, they'd be like, ooh, Storybook Park, yeah, that sounds great. And that maybe Aline could be honored in another way within the park, or just calling it Aline's Park is it's much easier to spell and remember. I also like Lewitt View. I think that's pretty great. All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone online that wishes to speak? If not, public comment is closed at this time. How about staff reports?
Well, wonderful. First off, congratulations on your first public hearing. Yay!
Yay.
We did it. I imagine there'll be more opportunities to do stuff like this and become much more, we'll all become more comfortable with the process, including myself and Clerk Strickler as well. So thank you for that. With that, some updates for you on some council action. At the May 22nd City Council meeting was almost entirely about parks, which was amazing. We spent a lot of time talking about the Engineering Standards Volume 3 that we painstakingly went over as a group. And he provided recommendations to. We also went over the Parks, Trails, and Recreation Capital Facilities Plan, and both of them were approved and adopted. So that's all good things, and we're already implementing the engineering standards into current plans that are coming to the city, and I can just say as a staff's perspective, it is refreshing to be able to work with developers who are eagerly leaning into these and really bringing new and fresh ideas to these parks that are being developed. So thank you for being a part of that process. On June 4th, the Planning Commission, our sister commission, had their meeting last week, and they did invite me to come in and talk about the comprehensive plan for the city of Ridgefield, which is the Envision Ridgefield 2045, specifically on the park and recreations component. So I did get to see our sister commission. I gave them stickers, told them about how wonderful Parks Board is and that we wish them the best of luck. But it was good to be able to go in and share what's going on with Parks and Recreation. So I hope I was a good steward of your work. And then the day after that, on June 5th, City Council had a study session on an update for the Ridgefield Community Center. So I'm happy to report that if you go to Ridgefield Roundtable, you'll see a whole update on there for the community center. We are at about 60% design for the facility at this point right now. And in the design process, price tags change, building layouts shift and move around as we run into different realities on the ground, and also making sure that we're fitting within the cost measures that we're striving for. I'm optimistic and feeling positive that the YMCA is still on board, and they are moving forward with their fundraising efforts to help fund their components of the facility. We're still in the final phases of our official agreements and whatnot, but I will say that they are moving forward in a good way, and we as a city are excited to work with whatever partner we may have, and if it's the YMCA, we will be thrilled. So with that, you can expect some sort of groundbreaking sometime in 2026, with opening as of scheduled right now sometime in late 27, depending on what schedules look like. Please don't hold me to that, but timelines change, things happen in the world, but we're happy to say that a community center is on the way. Cool. Other announcements I have for you. The Ridgefield Field House, the Rourke Field House has completed construction. So we are now, we have occupancy for the facility, and the city of Ridgefield is working with the school district to get it operational. It'll take us a little bit of time to make sure that we've got all of the operational components squared away, trained staff with the school district, worked out fees and scheduling processes, but you can expect that facility to be open and operational in August or September of this year. So we're working to get that going because we're excited to unveil a new asset for our community. Speaking of the Rourke, the Ridgefield Raptors have started their season. We are so thrilled that they are using our facility as their home for the season, and encourage anybody in the community, please go out and cheer on the Raptors. The Washington Recreation and Parks Association, which is the Parks Association for the state of Washington, had their annual conference on May 13th, 14th, 15th, and 16th in Tri-Cities. And Kelly Melroy and I were blessed to be able to go as representatives for the city of Ridgefield. And not only did we go, Kelly, Mr. Melroy, gave a presentation. Yes, he called it his TED Talk. I'm very proud of Kelly. We had a lot of fun doing this. We did a presentation on how to utilize relational leadership to develop a high-functioning team. Mr. Melroy is our facilities supervisor for the city of Ridgefield, overseeing our operations and maintenance team, specifically the same team that takes care of our parks and trails. And I have been, at least since I have gotten here, I have been deeply impressed with his ability to use storytelling and relationships to help further the mission of the city, and specifically our parks and trails. So I was very excited that he was open to sharing his expertise with other parks and recreation professionals from across the state. So I do have pictures. I will share them with you.
Yeah, I want to see.
And then finally, I'd like to announce that at the end of this month, our Public Works Director, Mr. Chuck Green, will be retiring. And I just want to put out there that I'm very thankful for the work that he's done, and wish him the very best in his retirement, and thank him for the work that he's done for the community. So what's coming next for you? On July 1st, there is the Policymakers City Tour, where you'll have an opportunity to tour different places within the community. Please make sure that you RSVP with me within the next week or so we can ensure that we've got enough space on the bus for you. On that tour will also be City Council and our Planning Commission, as well as a bunch of city staff who will help with that process. Some capital projects that are coming up this summer. Boyce Park is getting ready to go out to bid so we can start construction this year for our pump track. Paradise Point Park, which you have just provided some recommendations of namings on, is coming August or September of this year. The old caretaker house in Abrams Park is scheduled to come down at the end of the summer, so we're working through the bid process. We're also working on an update and rehab for the Onzo Nature Play Park. So Member Schill, I need to speak with you after the meeting because I have an update for you.
Okay,
Perfect.
thanks.
And then finally, some larger projects. We've made it halfway through the year as a Parks Board. A lot of the rest of this year is going to be focused in on our Parks Revenue Program. So we're going to be talking about how are we raising funds, how are we approaching cost recovery, and how can we help fund the parks projects that we would like to go after as a city. And finally, as I always do, I have a get outside message for the public. It is becoming summer, so please be aware of heat injuries. Heat injuries are very important for you to stay aware of. So be aware of the weather and the temperatures. Hydrate, drink water often, take breaks, pay attention to everyone in your group, regardless of age. Remember that younger children have a harder time vocalizing when they need water and they just want to run around and stay busy. So keep them hydrated, pay attention to the signs of heat exhaustion and heat stroke. Those being dizziness, nausea, heavy sweating, muscle cramps. Please always remember to bring water with you, and remember that the goal may be to reach the summit, but you are required to always return home, right? You don't have to reach the top, but you have to get home. So please stay safe this summer. We want to make sure that everyone's enjoying the outdoor spaces in a safe and healthy way. I could keep going. I'm just kidding. I'm good.
Does the board have anything to share?
Oh, I'll be brief. So my husband and I took a very long trip in May. We were gone most of it. And we were on the East Coast, traveling kind of across the U.S. and on the East Coast. And we went to a lot of areas we hadn't been before. Providence, Rhode Island, Westerly, different areas, Connecticut, Boston, Cape Cod, all the different areas. And of course, the history is the longest there in the United States than we are out here west. And that was one of the things I noticed was my husband wants to read every plaque. But when things are named, a lot of lighthouses, just waypoints, they would have a name, but it always had an explanation. And that's what made me realize, a name, like the previous Kelly, who was here earlier, said, you don't want a mouthful, but it needs to be explained what brings you to that. So I appreciated reading the shorter plaques, but that gave a explanation of what is the significance of this lighthouse or this point, off the Atlantic. And so I would like to see more of that, all of that in all of our parks, like even any of the parks. And that's something I should be going around looking at the parks saying, does it say why it's called Horns Corner?
Right.
So.
I'm glad that you brought up Eileen this meeting because I didn't know that she helped start CISPAS, and if all goes well, I'll be a CISPAS counselor this year in the fall.
Hey.
I know, so I'm excited to go, hopefully, if I don't get cut, knowing the history behind it now.
Yeah, good.
I'm just looking forward to, we have one more day of school, and then we will be using our parks quite a bit more than we have been. I went down and walked through Refuge Park and jogged at the waterfront the other day, so it was nice. I don't think I'd ever walked all the way through the wildlife refuge. Just ready to go enjoy our resources here.
And I, too, am an educator, so I look forward to that as well, and hiking, and having the opportunity to enjoy our trail system. So,
I look forward to that as well.
yes, you do. So with that, it is 7:34, and we will adjourn this meeting. Thank you, you guys, for coming.